Brought to you by Penguin.
The Searchers by Andy Beckett. Read by Alexi Armitage. Introduction. 5 Heretics. On the 28th of April, 1983, Tony and Cherie Blair picked up a Labour politician in their car from his home in West London. The Blairs were still in their 20s, bright young barristers, both trying to become Labour MPs. The politician, who was twice their age, and a friend of Cherie's father, the actor Tony Booth, had agreed to speak alongside Cherie at a rally. She had been chosen as the Labour candidate for Thanet North, a new constituency in Kent. Although it was her first candidacy, her expectations were not that high. Thanet North consisted of a strip of coastal towns in the far east of the county, running from Herne Bay to Margate, with lots of retirees who usually voted Tory. The local Labour Party was small and quiet. Nationally, the Tories were well ahead of Labour in the polls, as Margaret Thatcher's government basked in its recent victory in the Falklands, and the Prime Minister was expected to call a general election at any moment. The best result that Cherie could realistically hope for was a respectable second place. The traditional first step towards contesting an easier seat next time. As the impatient young Blairs endured the slow 2.5-hour drive from West London to East Kent, they hoped that their passenger would help bring about those outcomes. He was a former cabinet minister, and for a long time had been considered a possible Labour leader and Prime Minister. But his rise in the party had recently stalled. "I am very, very depressed," he had recorded in his diary a few weeks before the Thanet trip. "I feel a sense of isolation, uncertain about the future." His relationship with some of the ambitious newcomers to the party, such as the Blairs, was an increasingly uneasy one, as they gradually moved away from his political ideas, which from the early 1970s to the early 80s had shaped many of Labour's policies. Now only more basic political forces, such as party camaraderie, his and Cherie's mutual need for public attention, and the requirement to unite against the Conservatives before the election, held the carload of Labour partisans together. They arrived in Margate. The evening rally was to take place in its old town hall, a modestly sized Georgian building a few streets back from the seafront. Margate was well past its peak, a tired resort increasingly avoided by British holidaymakers, who since the 1960s had been going abroad in large growing numbers. Yet few local people seemed to blame the Conservatives for failing to reverse the town's decline. The local Tory majority had increased at the previous general election in 1979. The rally for Cherie Blair had the potential to be a dispiriting occasion. But it did not turn out like that. The room booked for the event, which had a small stage, soon filled up. While the rooms in the town hall were unlocked, they filled with people too. Later arrivals had to stand on the stairs. A speaker system had to be rigged up to broadcast the speeches through the building. The rally finally began. Cherie spoke first. Then came her father, a sitcom star known on screen and in real life for his blunt socialism and roguish persona. Yet it was the politician from West London who made the biggest impression. He was the person most of the audience had come to hear. "I had never heard him speak before that night," Tony Blair wrote in his memoirs, a quarter of a century later. He went on, "I sat enraptured, absolutely captivated and inspired. I thought, if only I could speak like that. What impressed me was not so much the content, actually I didn't agree with a lot of it, but the power of it, the ability to use words to move people, not simply to persuade. First, there was his utter confidence. From the outset, the audience were relaxed and able to listen, because they knew the speaker was in control. When he began, he looked around at them. There was no uncertainty, no negative energy. It wasn't the absence of nerves, it was the presence of self-belief. He held them, easily and naturally. Second, he used humour. If someone can make you laugh, you're already in their power. Third, there was a thread that ran throughout the speech. An argument. Sometimes there was
Sample complete. Ready to continue?